Hey, yo, what's up? So, I wanted to talk about something I read where people were like, hey, you shouldn't give up. I should have done the bro voice. Oh, bro, you shouldn't give up. When a girl just rejects you just once, that's some pussy shit, right? You should imagine if you had that mindset for other things, right? Like getting a job. And, that kind of made me think, it is actually kind of the same thing where you should give up if you just get rejected once for a job, because trying to get a girlfriend is basically like applying, if you're an unwanted guy, right, is like applying to a CEO job or some other very high level position when you have no experience or just very minor entry level job experience. Imagine you're SpongeBob and you're a fry cook, right? You're a fry cook at the Krusty Krab, and you've done that for years. You're gonna tell me if a job, if Mr. Krabs passes away, you're gonna sign up and apply to be the CEO of the Krusty Krab or whatever? Like, no. Like, are you gonna get the job? No, you're probably not, because you lack the experience, right? You don't have the skills. You're not qualified. You don't, even if the skills are incredibly nonsensical and stupid, right? The fact is, you don't get to decide, right? The person who is setting up the job, who is asking for that position to be filled, gets to decide what the prerequisites are, even if the prerequisites are completely unreasonable and whatever, right? It kind of goes to the other jobs where it's like, oh, basically entry level experience. Oh, but we want like a master's degree and like 5 years of experience, and they'll only pay like $40K a year. It's like, come on, bro. It's like, you read that kind of stuff, entry level position, and you're like, that's unreasonable. Master's degree and years, like half a decade of experience for basically entry level salary. It's like, come on, that's very unreasonable, and no guy's gonna be like, oh yeah, that I'll totally take that, right? You'll reluctantly take it, or maybe, yeah, you will, and the thing is, they can reject you if you don't meet those requirements, even if they're stupid, right? Because we all know that's stupid, right? You probably should be compensated a bit more for all that experience, and when it's probably just kind of a simple, on the training job, right? You can get on the job training, and you can probably do most jobs. You don't need this, oh yeah, a high level degree for a lot of stuff, right? Maybe for some stuff you do, but it's like, come on, a requirement, like a degree requirement, is mostly just a way to gatekeep kind of stuff. But, going back to the main point, women can do the same thing with jobs, or not with jobs, with the relationships, right? They're the ones who are asking for the position of boyfriend, husband, relationship, friend with benefits, person, whatever it is, to be filled. So, they can decide whatever they want, no matter how unreasonable it is. Maybe the position will never get filled because they're asking for unreasonable things, but, that's on them. Ultimately, they still have the final say, and they decide everything. So, if you're an unwanted guy with no experience, and you're like, into later age, like, 25 plus, no girlfriend ever, no kissless, hugless, handholdless virgin, no girlfriend, then yeah, how likely do you think you'll be able to fill in the requirements, the prerequisites to satisfy that position? You probably won't, and of course you'll get rejected, just like the entry-level fast food worker trying to apply to be, a CEO or something, right? It's like, even if you do have, I guess in theory, the mental requirements and the skills, just the fact that, or that you have the potential, right? It doesn't even matter. They'll just see that you don't have these arbitrary prerequisites, that you just don't seem good enough right off the bat, right on paper. You don't seem good enough. They'll just reject you. And sometimes that is the case that's going to be the case for a lot of people, right? Just because you don't meet the requirements on paper, it's like, oh, bro, this other guy, he was a college dropout, and then he became completely rich or whatever. Well, that's a 1 in a million thing, right? It's not a common occurrence. Most college, high school dropouts are not going to go on to create, mega companies that, generate so much profit, or they're not going to go on to create Google or whatever, or Facebook or whatever, right? And just because you dropped out of college, and now you're going to compare yourself to, what, Mark Zuckerberg or something, that's a cope. Most guys aren't going to do that, right? It's like, well, first of all, most guys who are going to drop out aren't dropping out of, some high-level institution, right? It's like, oh, I just dropped out of community college. It's like a big difference right off the bat. So it's a cope to compare yourself like that. But, yeah. Women get to decide, and unwanted guys are basically applying to a position where they just don't have the skills, right? You just naturally don't have the skills or prerequisites for anything to fulfill that position, or else you already would have, right? It's like or another case is like a 30-year-old who's never worked before suddenly trying to apply for something that requires requires in quotes, right? Because in reality nothing really requires a college or post high school education for the most part. It's a cope to think you need some kind of associate's or bachelor's degree or master's or whatever to do most jobs, right? That's just kind of like I said before, gatekeeping by the job to only allow a certain class of people, right? Because you need money to some extent to enter or to get that kind of education. You need some kind of not experience, but you need some level of opportunity, right? An opportunity that only a certain class of person can really get, right? Like if you're homeless, if you've been homeless most of your life, odds are, and you're very poor and you're living in poverty, odds are you just don't have the opportunities available to you to easily get into high-level education, right? That's just not the case. Chances are you gotta drop out of high school or whatever, or that kind of stuff. So it's basically just a way to gatekeep certain classes of people, right? And it's not that you need, not that college is even anything special or anything, right? I don't think it was. I went to college or university and got a 4-year degree, and I don't think it was anything special at all, right? I didn't even go to my graduation or any of that kind of stuff, right? Do I have a bachelor's degree? Yeah, but it's meaningless to me, right? Because I realize it's just a piece of paper, and the only reason I went to college was because it's what you're supposed to do technically, right? It's kind of the next step, and my parents would tell me, oh, just go to college, and then they said, oh, go to college, bro. Your parents call you bro. It's like, just go to college, bro. Then you'll get whatever job you want, right? Then you have the world available to you, right? Well, obviously that's not the case, right? Especially nowadays, a college degree is almost kind of an expected kind of thing, and that's why they're asking for you just get a master's degree, bro, and then you can get qualified for our entry-level position, right? So yeah, just kind of a weird long rant, right? It's like talking about how BS, college is, right? And even then, right, the experience, bro, just go for the experience. Is it Like that, you only get that typical college experience if you're, attractive and normie enough. Because, I didn't. Did I I even lived in the dorms for a while. And, well, guess what? Some people say, oh, bro, it's so easy to get laid in college, right? Especially if you live on campus. And then, all the girls are so horny and it's so easy, right? Well, that's some guy speaking from a privileged place, right? I lived in the dorms and, I never had any girl look at me in any kind of way. It's like, if anything, I remember, when I had my friends, right? And when we were in the dorms, I had a crush on this one girl. I didn't know her name, but she also lived in the dorms. And, I don't even remember what her nickname was. I do not. I really want to. Maybe it'll come to me later. Because we had a nickname for girls in college that we didn't know their name of, but we just saw them around the dorms or around campus or whatever. And yeah, I remember I would ask them, hey, I'm gonna go stand and go, because we were going to the cafeteria or lunch hall or whatever it's called in the dorms freshman year. And so I was gonna walk right past where she was sitting. And that was I told my friend, hey, can you look in my direction? Just tell me, is she even trying to look or check me out when I go? Because at this point, I was a freshman. I was still coping hard and thought, oh, maybe a girl will like me in college. And, I asked him to do that. I asked him to do that several times, over the course of freshman year. Like, maybe this girl will look at me, or maybe she'll pay attention if I kind of walk by, right? Because, that's what you're going to do. Just think about it from your perspective. If a cute girl you have a crush on walks by and her back is turned, right? Are you going to, check her out? Or are you going to look at her butt? Or look at her ass? Why, when she walks past you? Like, of course you will, right? That's just the way things work. So, like, why would a girl not do the same, right? Because humans are humans, right? It's a cope to think that, oh, yeah, women are going to be so much more different. If at the end of the day, is there going to be some variation due to like hormones and like whatever, chromosomes? Sure. But, the basic foundation or whatever of being a human is still the same. They still are going to find, physically attractive guys physically attractive, right? Just the way guys are going to find physically attractive women physically attractive, and people are going to be inclined to look at physically attractive people. That's just how it is. It's not a controversial opinion. It's just how humans work. And all those times, she never looked, right? And, I always died a little bit on the inside, and coped. Like, maybe it was just a bad day. Maybe she just didn't notice. But, like, thinking back about it, it's like, come on, bro. Like, how many times do I have to walk past her and have her ignore me to come to the fact that, hey, she's not attracted to me. She isn't, and she wasn't. And I never talked to her, and she never looked at me or did anything. If anything, she would always look down in a way when we did have to cross paths and, walk past each other. She'd always look down in a way and walk fast past me. Like, some guy will cope, oh, bro, she was intimidated. But no, she wasn't. If she was intimidated and liked me, she could have just looked at me, when there was no chance, right? When there was no way she would look at me. But, instead, no, she talked to the other guys just fine, right? She just didn't look at me. She would make eye contact and talk with the other guys in the lunch hall, right? But not me. It's always there. It's like, people always want to make it, oh, bro, they're intimidated or whatever. But it's like, no, that's not the case. Eventually you just gotta, come to the fact that, girls just aren't attracted to you. And that it just is what it is. And this was freshman year in college, and, same thing happened, I didn't live in the dorms or on campus. I lived in an apartment close to the campus, but sophomore, junior, and senior year, and, but the same thing, it was the same, right? Even on the dining, it was a dining hall, not a cafeteria, even in but in, like, the open area, where they had all these little restaurants and tables or people could sit down and eat and, do their work. Like, I would sit out there sometimes, or, walk past girls in those areas and ask my friend, hey, can you just look in my direction to see if that girl is, like, maybe looks at me or, checks me out or anything. And that never happened, right? Like, that's a brutal reality, right? Because at that point, the girl doesn't know my friend, right? But she'll know an attractive guy when she sees one, and she'll be inclined to look at them. And, that never happened, right? And that's just a brutal reality that no matter what, I'm unqualified for the position of being attractive to women. So, giving up is actually a smart thing to do, right? Because, it's pointless. If I go on Indeed, and if Indeed even still exists, I don't know, that's where I got my job. If I go on there and just apply to every, CEO job or whatever position, right? Some high-paying, high requirement position. If I do that and, put in a resume of, oh yeah, I have no work experience. I just have a 4-year degree, or even less than that, right? Because let's talk about it from the perspective of being a 30-year-old kissless, hugless, handholdless virgin, girlfriendless also, right? If I do that, I have no experience. I just graduated high school and I'm 30 years old and I'm applying to be your CEO. Like, I'm going to get rejected. They're going to look at that and just not even respond, right? I don't even get a proper rejection. I just don't even register. It'll just register a spam request. They'll just ignore it. And, that's kind of how it works in the real world with women and guys. They don't deem as qualified, right? Because they don't meet the minimum looks threshold, or some other arbitrary reason. They just instantly dismiss them. There's just spam in the boyfriend application folder in their head. So it is, it is an equivalent. It is actually equivalent, and it makes sense to make that comparison. You should just kind of just give up, right? You have to know your limits, right? It's like, just know your limits. Can I, as an unexperienced, never worked in his life, only graduated high school guy, can I suddenly just apply to a CEO job and get it? Sure, there's a greater than 0% chance, but is it actually probable? Is it greater than 1? Like, no. So it's like, sure, you can cope and think, oh, bro, it's 0.000000000 to the 1 millionth power, 0.1% or whatever, right? With a lot of zeros. There's a chance, right? Because there's always a chance of everything happening. But it's not probable, it's not likely, and there's really no point in actually believing it'll happen. It's better to just forget about it and move on. Like I said, know your limits. Apply yourself in other areas of life where you can actually have a chance, where success has a greater than 1% chance to occur. And some guys just have that 0% chance, right? At a certain point, you just gotta face reality. It all comes back down to that one thing, that one savvy guy quote where it's like, guys, by high school, probably most guys are going to know where they stand with women. And it's a delusion to think not, right? If you never get attention from any girl in middle school and in high school, then you just know women just don't really find you attractive. Because even normie guys will eventually get some attention. Am I going to say that they're going to have girls coming up to them and like pulling their pants down and or grinding down on them and or just staring at them drooling? No, but they'll get some kind of attention. You'll get some kind of proximity, some kind of IOI, signal of interest, or whatever, indicator of interest, whatever it is, right? They'll get it eventually. But if you really don't get anything, then, it's GG, bro. FF15, bro. Never began. Genetics diff. Go next. That kind of stuff. Just run it down mid, bro. Yeah, it is what it is. Like I said, know your limits. It's like in League too. Another thing I learned from League, right? Sometimes you got to know your limits, right? Some games are just unwinnable. If by like 5 minutes, your bot lane is 0-6, your top laner is 0-3, you know, um, it's like mid and jungle, are roaming into your jungle and stealing your camps and hiding in bushes and killing you. Like, at some point, bro, every lane's losing. Just go next, bro. It's like, sure, there's a chance you can win and come back, but everyone's mental is probably shot. The odds are just not good. Big goal deficit. It's like you have to really prolong and delay the game. And even then, it could be genetics diff, right? Where it kind of never began from the start, right? But it's champ diff, right? Maybe their champions just scale better, so you can't even prolong the game. You lost early on early spiking champs. So it's like, it's over, bro. Like I said, just know your limits. And that's kind of it. This went on a lot longer than I thought. So yeah, a bit of rambling kind of thing. Rambling. Well, all videos are rambling. So yeah, that's kind of it for now. Later.